Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the From the Periphery podcast. I'm your co-host for today, Ayman Makarem. With me is Elia Ayoub.
Hi. Hey, everyone.
And today we're doing a very urgent episode about the hunger strikers in the UK. Today, there are currently 8 activists on hunger strike in the UK that are in prison awaiting trial, and they are, according to doctors, dying. Some of the hunger strikers have been going for over 40 days. They've been imprisoned under this new era of repression of activism and solidarity with Palestine, especially under Keir Starmer's Labour government. What the hunger strikers are demanding is the right to a fair trial, because most of them, all of them, are still awaiting trial. It's really important to note, none of them have been convicted of anything, and some of them have their trials set for January 2027. As I said in the offset, all of these people are at risk of death, and the Labour government in the UK are doing nothing. They're completely ignoring it. And at this point, the Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Minister, David Lammy, I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago, infamously said, after 25 days of hunger strike, that he had no idea about it. He didn't have a clue. This is the Justice Minister. That's clearly a lie. 2 days ago, we heard that one hunger striker, Kisr Zuhra, was transported to the hospital, but only after protesters outside of the prison protested and demanded that she be given medical treatment. Of course, this all comes in the context of the proscription of Palestine Action, a direct action group, as a terrorist organization. The two main direct actions that these people are sort of being held in detention for are the damaging of an Elbit factory, which is an Israeli arms company that operates out of the UK, as well as many other countries, and the alleged break-in into an RAF airbase, that's the Royal Air Force, in which activists sprayed planes that were specifically, I think, refueling planes. And all of this to say that there is a very loud silence by the mainstream media in the UK around this case. And the urgency and the seriousness of this cannot be understated. These are UK citizens who are being held without trial, who are at risk of death and are not being treated with the medical care they need, and who are being ignored by the political class, specifically by the Labour government under Starmer. With that said, there have been MPs that have written a letter to Starmer. There have also been, I think, reportedly 900 healthcare professionals who have written a letter also to Lammy and to 10 Downing Street. But even though this is covered a little bit, I have found some BBC articles and the like. This is huge, and it needs more attention, it needs more noise, because ultimately these types of things only move. The reason that they've done this hunger strike, that they've taken this very, very intense decision, is to make noise about what they see as injustice being done unto them, using the only thing they have left, which is their bodies. And so, I don't know, Elia, do you have, what are your reactions to this and reflections, especially living in the UK?
It's generally very grim for multiple reasons. The first and obvious one, which is that they are themselves they are at risk, as you said. The hunger strike is an open-ended one, so they will not, presumably will not end it until the demands are met. As you said, the demands are pretty straightforward. They just want a fair trial. They want PA, i.e. Palestine Action, to be deproscribed. They're not the only ones to want that. No one actually knows what the end game here is. The government, as you've mentioned, David Lammy, about a week ago, pretended that he did not even hear about it, which, for those who know a bit of British history, is a bit eerie, because last time there was such a big hunger strike in 1981. That's the one that infamously Bobby Sands, among others, died of. The way it's being talked about is also reminiscent a bit of that era, and I would argue in some sense it's worse. You hear language, the very passive language, like they are starving themselves, they are refusing food, stuff like that, essentially to blame them, instead of they are on hunger strike, which is a very long-standing method to protest very unjust conditions, which is exactly the conditions in which they're in right now. They've been awaiting trial for over a year. Usually in cases like this, maybe you await trial for 6 months without being charged with anything, and even then would be considered quite extreme. It's been over a year. PA wasn't even proscribed at the time. Now they are, obviously. There's an actual chance, just to explain how cruelly absurd this all is, there is a non-zero chance that PA gets deproscribed in the meantime, because there's a lot of push for it. A lot of lawyers have argued that there's nothing illegal about the prescription of PA. I'm not a lawyer, but that is the case being made. Kesser is on her, I believe, 48th day of food, without food, sorry, today. She was taken to hospital. Today we're recording on Friday, 19th of December. She was taken to hospital 2 days ago. My understanding is that she wanted to go to hospital the day before, so the Tuesday, and she was refused. The ambulances, I mean, were refused. The prison where she's at refused entry to ambulances. And it's only after there was protests in front of the prison, including the intervention of one MP, Zara Sultana, that the ambulance was allowed to go through. In no uncertain terms, we have to be very clear, as you said at the outset, Ayman, that these people can actually die, that this can actually happen. These are British citizens. They are being treated like nothing. Like there's no charge of terrorism against them. This isn't even a situation where there were cases a few years ago where you have like British citizens who joined ISIS, for example, who were treated in the media as one would expect ISIS and members to be treated. And it was, even then quite problematic and it went extreme. But there isn't even that sort of quote unquote excuse this time around. These people are, being accused of playing roles and they break in to that Israeli linked quote unquote defense firm. Defense firm is how these things are, of course, described in the media. I'm here reading from The Independent, by which they mean the weapons manufacturer. They're supposed to go on trial in May next year at the absolute earliest. It could be longer than that, and even if it is in May, that would be longer than most cases I can think of. 4 of those groups are the ones that are accused of playing roles in the break-in of that quote-unquote defense firm. The other 4 are those that have allegedly broken into that RAF base. They cause millions of pounds worth of damage. That's basically what they're being accused of doing. And since then, PA has been, of course, proscribed as a terrorist organization. And so those two are being linked at the very least in the media, even though the legal case doesn't actually do those two, doesn't link those two. The fact that Lamy pretended about a week ago that he, supposedly didn't even hear about it kind of sent me chills down my spine, to be honest. People who may or may not know this, but during the hunger strikes in Northern Ireland, Thatcher was in power, of course, and she very explicitly and categorically refused to recognize the prisoners as political prisoners. And among those who died during the hunger strike was Bobby Sands, who was a sitting member of parliament of the UK. So there is a precedent for something this horrible to happen. This is why people are sounding the alarm that these people could actually die, because the UK government has allowed people to just die. They just don't deal with the case, and they wait until the case is either too bad, or if there's a lot of, and by which I mean a lot of media coverage, which is precisely what we're not seeing now, or until they die. And there's a very, very real chance of that happening this time around. Kesser, I should say, is 20 years old. I have to emphasize this. Everyone is in their 20s. I believe one person is 31. Everyone else is in their 20s. This is who the Labour government is going against at this time, in this kind of an economy that's not exactly doing well, a horrible NHS crisis, a mental health crisis, a cost of living crisis, a climate crisis, so many crises this country is going through. All this Labour government seems to know how to do, at least consistently, is demonize migrants and refugees and go against anything even remotely related to Palestine. Two positions that are deeply unpopular with the labor base, and which makes this all the more confusing maybe for outsiders. But I mean, whether we get into this or not, we can talk about it. But this is the state of affairs now.
No, yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this for 2.5 years now, ever since the launch of the genocidal war in Gaza, that the UK is deeply implicated. That not just that they allow these firms to operate from UK soil, but also there's been so many accusations of RAF planes doing surveillance for the Israeli military, also sending weapons themselves with Israel. And on top of that, there is a rise of the far right, if we want to be a bit euphemistic, within the UK, very similar to what we see. I see the UK as emblematic and the dynamics you're describing with so many other contexts around the world, wherein you have this far right ascendancy and the center cannot hold. And the only thing the center can do is try to appease right-wing voters and end up being more right-wing themselves. And then ultimately, no one wants fascism light. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Keir Starmer, it's baffling because he must know, but apparently he doesn't, and I don't understand it, that by appealing to the right-wing voters, he's just shifting the what do they go the Overton window, because like the speech he gave about immigration, the thing that the Home Secretary just released, the new immigration policy, which is just so dystopic and so cruel. It's paving the way for Nigel Farage, who I hate that we're still talking about, because I remember 10 years ago after Brexit, he tried to get out of politics. He grew a mustache and he was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And now he's back with a vengeance. And so it's deeply frustrating and upsetting that after 15 years of the Tories in the UK, that this sort of breath of fresh air once Labour won a couple of years ago, or I think it's been a year and plus now, that you're right, that the only thing we're really seeing, the only thing they're doing consistently is going after migrants, trying to appeal to right-wing voters, going after activists, and yeah, essentially criminalizing solidarity with Palestine. Am I wrong to say that they're also trying to move to ban the chant globalize the Intifada?
I don't know if they will do so officially, but it is one of those things that the police, for example, in Manchester, said that they would be on the lookout for it and make arrests as a result. So I don't know if it's going to be like a policy. It might at this stage. I have no idea. The way things are shifting very quickly in this country is quite frightening at times. But they might, that may actually happen. And it's not just that he is like trying to appease right-wing voters or anything like that. Sometimes Labour goes beyond. Sometimes Labour goes to talks about, for example, going after trans rights and whatnot, topics like an issue that is rarely among, in the polls that voters talk about, polls that ask voters what are their concerns and whatnot. It really figures among them as anywhere near a priority, because as I said, people are just worried about, for the most part, about the cost of living crisis and whatnot. So there are certain things that the Labour government is doing that it's not just the right wing that is supporting them, it's the far right that is celebrating them, including Tommy Robinson. This is the stage we're at. So what actually happened, to reference your comment about fascism light, is that people who already like Nigel Farage are still fans of Nigel Farage, and people who are disgusted with the Labour Party are not actually moving to the right, because why would they? They're not actually moving to the left. They're just going to the party that is more to the left than the Labour Party at the moment, which is the Green Party. And the Green Party have had like a meteoric rise in the polls. They're now the dominant party in the polls in London. It's like things that like just a few years ago would be completely unheard of. Which isn't to say that they will win necessarily, but they will definitely get, I think projections are like up to like 80 seats in parliament if there are elections next year. So like we're at the stage now where it's very difficult to even know whether the Labour government is able, and not able, maybe that's the wrong word, but is willing, Because I genuinely think this is more a situation where it's a lot of cowardice. From our vantage point, you would think that they're looking at the polls, they see the polls going in a certain direction, they're seeing the party to their left actually gaining a lot of their voters, and the voters that are going to the right are people who are already on the right. So that the strategy is not working, and you would think in a situation like that, they would, have this cold calculus of like what strategy should we have to make sure we stay on top or whatnot. But genuinely, this doesn't seem to be how they're going about things. They're spending a lot of their times appealing not just right-wing voters, but making overtures to the right-wing press. Keir Starmer writing op-eds in, I believe, the Telegraph is one of them, and he's definitely written op-eds to the Jewish Chronicles, a very right-wing outlet here in the UK. And so yeah, this is the situation we're in now. I don't know whether there will be enough pressure. I'm hoping, of course, 900 or over 800 or so doctors, legal experts, and others have written to David Lammy, as you said. There's a bunch of different MPs, including Labour MPs. Like, this is how absurd the situation is, that are calling for David Lammy and Keir Starmer to take action on this matter. And for me, like, as a maybe separate but connected point, the way it's being covered in the mainstream media, and by mainstream media I mean basically all of them, is even The Guardian, I should say, is that there is coverage here and there are mentions here and there, but there's no urgency to this. This is not a crisis as far as they're concerned. This is not like a terrifying situation that represents a further step down, a descent into further authoritarianism so close to the next general elections in a few years and the big elections next year as well, with reform already on the rise in many ways. You would think that it's just something happening, it's a thing happening in prisons. And David Lammy has told the press that his office is keeping him informed of the latest developments, whatever that means. But there's no indication, at least at the time of recording, that he will actually meet up with the lawyers, or that there's going to be any kind of reckoning on a national level, if you want, of like, how is this even possible? They are not being tried. They haven't been charged with anything. And my personal opinion, I cannot prove what's in anyone's mind, but I think that they're not being allowed to go into trial because the trial will be pretty straightforward. It would not be proportional to what has been done to them whatsoever. Maybe they get a fine, maybe something, but like, they wouldn't be accused officially, charged officially with something that merits this type of treatment.
No, yeah, not at all. And as you said, like, this has so much bearing on the state of the UK at the moment domestically. All of this obviously has to do with its policies vis-a-vis Israel-Palestine, its long history. Again, like, you go back a little bit and a lot of this problem emerges from the UK. The signing, the British Mandate of Palestine, the Balfour Declaration, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, and like, at the moment, the Labour government really seems to be going into this like sunken cost fallacy, wherein it's just doubling down, and it's having this horrendous effect where, it already has blood on its hands in terms of its foreign policy, but then it's going to have some of this domestically. If, God forbid, one of these people actually pass away, or rather, I should just say die, because it's an active choice as a protest. And I don't know. I do hope, obviously, that there's enough pressure that they see sort of sense, but it's that kind of thing of, if you've ignored these hunger strikers for 45 days, it like makes it harder for them every single day to turn around and say, oh, actually, now we care.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. We'll see, I guess, how it goes. Maybe we do another update at some point. We'll put maybe in the show notes what you think that of where people can find, at least to follow the news on, for example, Instagram. But yeah, this is generally very concerning.
It's very concerning, and that's why we wanted to do this like quick, if not just like short episode, to inform people that may not know, especially people that are not in the UK, but also even people within the UK, because yeah, as we said, this really is not getting the coverage that it deserves.
Yeah.
And so, with that said, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, Elia, for sitting with me and talking about this.
Of course, thanks.
From the Periphery is a worker-owned media collective. We focus on elevating voices, struggles, and ideas that are peripheralized and marginalized under mainstream journalism and academia. If you like the work we do and want to see more of it, please consider heading over to patreon.com and become a member today. For as little as $5 a month, you get access to exclusive content, an invitation to our monthly hangout, and to join the community that's been growing around our work. If you can't support financially, there are still a number of ways you can support us. You can leave a 5-star rating on the podcast app you're using to listen, like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and leave a comment wherever you're listening, all of which helps us against the algorithm. Most importantly, tell your friends and family about us to help spread the word. Thank you so much for listening.